The Israelis don't represent the Jewish communities of the world. They represent Zionism and racism. It must be said here, whoever supports them supports racism.
South Africa has taken a strong stance, not only against Israel, but also against the entire Western world. Their motivation stems from a desire to expose true advocates of human rights, differentiating between those who genuinely stand for it and those who simply pay lip service. While many Western countries talk extensively about human rights, South Africa believes they are turning a blind eye to the difficult situation faced by the Palestinian people. South Africa refuses to remain silent and is determined to oppose the unfolding tragedy, vehemently opposing the idea of allowing a genocide to occur while being aware of it. The crucial question now is whether South Africa's firm stand can make a difference and put an end to the unfair treatment. In the context of the Gaza conflict, South Africa has firmly stood its ground, expressing deep concerns about the humanitarian crisis and the tragic loss of innocent lives.
When you are oppressed, the only option you have is to fight. And that's what Hamas is doing. They are fighting for their freedom. Mandela did the same thing, took up the guns and fought for the freedom of the people of South Africa. When you are oppressed, you only have one option.
The South African representative at the Non-Aligned Movement Summit was straightforward in highlighting the importance of teamwork and advocating for a revamp of the United Nations. Their focus is on resolving global and regional conflicts through diplomatic negotiations. South Africa's stance demonstrates a commitment to finding collective solutions to complex problems, rather than merely pointing fingers. They actively promote a multilateral approach, envisioning multiple countries working together as a united team to tackle challenging opponents on the field. At the heart of South Africa's stance lies the dire situation in Gaza. The representative's words echo the sentiments of many Africans who empathize with the suffering and disruption experienced by innocent civilians in the region. The call for United Nations reform is not just a rhetorical statement. It serves as a rallying cry for change. South Africa believes that the current system requires modernization and improvement to effectively address the complexities of the 21st century. It's not about breaking things down, but rather building a stronger foundation for international cooperation. When discussing reform, the focus is on making the United Nations more effective and responsive, similar to updating policies to eliminate problems within a state. In this case, the problems are the obstacles that hinder the swift resolution of global and regional disputes. South Africa emphasizes that negotiations are the only way forward, urging a shift away from relying solely on force or one-sided decisions. The nation advocates for diplomatic approaches, highlighting the importance of sitting at the table, engaging in discussions, and finding common ground. South Africa believes that talking it out is the key to conflict resolution, emphasizing that it's not about who can shout the loudest, but rather about presenting the stronger argument. This lesson resonates with the daily lives of people who navigate their own disputes. The Non-Aligned Movement Summit is not just a gathering of diplomats in fancy suits. It serves as a platform where nations come together in alliance to address issues that affect everyone. South Africa's focus on Gaza brings attention to the importance of solidarity, unity, and collective efforts to bring about positive change. The African spirit, rooted in the belief of interconnected humanity, serves as a reminder that we are all part of the same human family. South Africa's strong stance on Gaza aligns with this ethos, emphasizing that the pain of one is the pain of all. But why did South Africa take action in this matter?
As people and an organization that has struggled against an oppressive system of apartheid, we do pledge solidarity with the Palestinians. And as the African National Congress, we have always pledged our solidarity with them, and we've always insisted that the only solution for the problems in the Middle East, particularly between Israel and Palestine is a two-state solution based on the 1967 borders as approved by the world community and the United Nations.
South Africa did not shy away from expressing its disapproval of Israel's actions, labeling the ongoing violence as nothing short of genocide. The nation emphasizes the responsibility that countries bear in upholding international conventions, particularly highlighting the Convention on the Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. South Africa stresses the importance of holding nations accountable for their actions. The reason behind South Africa's firm stance boils down to principles laid out in international agreements that are meant to guide nations during times of crisis. The country firmly believes that the severity of the situation in Gaza warranted the grave characterization of genocide, and it was imperative to call it out. South Africa expects those who speak about human rights to stand up for it. The Convention on the Punishment of the Crime of Genocide is not merely a document on a shelf, but a set of rules that countries are supposed to follow to prevent and punish genocide. South Africa's condemnation of the violence in Gaza is a call for adherence to these rules, reminding the international community not to look the other way when these agreed-upon principles are at stake. South Africa's disappointment is not solely directed at the events in Gaza, but also at the behavior of some nations on the global stage. The nation expresses frustration with those who preach about democracy and human rights, but conveniently forget these principles when faced with a crisis. South Africa expects consistency from its global counterparts, calling for accountability and a genuine commitment to shared values. Regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict, South Africa has taken a clear and unwavering stance. The nation is not a mere spectator, but actively calls for immediate action and presents a roadmap for resolution. First and foremost, South Africa demands an immediate ceasefire, emphasizing the urgency of halting the ongoing hostilities. The demand for the release of hostages and prisoners adds another layer to South Africa's position, highlighting the importance of ensuring the safety and freedom of those affected by the conflict. Beyond the immediate cessation of hostilities, South Africa advocates for negotiations that lead to the formal recognition of both Israel and Palestine as independent states. The reference to the 1967 boundaries acknowledges the historical context and serves as a proposed foundation for delineating the territories of these two nations. South Africa promotes a diplomatic approach, championing negotiations as the means to resolve the conflict. This serves as a call to the negotiating table, urging all parties involved in the Israel-Palestine conflict to engage in dialogue and find common ground that respects the sovereignty and rights of both Israel and Palestine. The South African government has taken the bold step of escalating the situation to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, seeking intervention from this global judicial body. This action demonstrates South Africa's commitment to finding a just and legal resolution. The response from the international community to South Africa's efforts has been significant. When South African representatives stood up and urged nations to exhibit courage in addressing the Palestine issue, it was not just an individual effort, but a call for collective action. This spotlight raises pertinent questions about the choices made by countries, especially those who champion the cause of human rights. The fundamental query is why other nations, particularly those vocal about human rights, have not followed suit. The call for courage is not merely a challenge to specific countries, but a universal appeal for a united front in the face of injustice. It questions why one would shy away when the call for justice is ringing loud and clear. In this international matter, the South African representative acts as the protagonist, urging others to fight for what is right. The resonance of this call extends beyond the immediate moment. The international community is being nudged to consider the consequences of inaction. It is not just a plea, it is a stark reminder that staying silent or passive in the face of injustice has ramifications. The call to action is a plea for foresight, a recognition that today's inaction may pave the way for tomorrow's disregard of human rights. The impact of this call goes beyond the present crisis. it is a plea to safeguard the future. The world is being urged to reflect on how looking the other way today may set a precedent for future breaches of human rights. It is a call to break the cycle of indifference and take proactive steps to prevent the recurrence of such crises. As for South Africa's stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict, the country's solidarity with the Palestinian cause runs deep, tracing its roots back to the era of iconic leaders Nelson Mandela and Yasser Arafat. The African National Congress, ANC, South Africa's ruling party, has maintained historical ties with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, spanning decades, fostering a connection that transcends time. Over the years, South Africa has consistently stood by Palestine, an allegiance that has stirred profound division among its people. This unwavering commitment found renewed vigor in recent times, marked by decisive actions taken by the government. Notably, South Africa filed a case against Israel at the ICJ on genocide allegations, a move that has garnered widespread support among its citizens. This bold step resonates with many South Africans who view it as a crucial measure to hold Israel accountable for its actions against the Palestinian population. While this case sparks pride among the people, it is also seen as a continuation of the country's enduring support for the Palestinian cause. South Africa's diplomatic stance is nuanced. While maintaining ties with both Israel and Palestine, the country has condemned Israel's actions in Gaza. Simultaneously, South Africa has not hesitated to criticize the resistance group Hamas for its attacks and kidnappings of Israeli civilians. Despite these diplomatic intricacies, South Africa's support for Palestine remains steadfast, with the nation persistently advocating for Palestinian freedom and endorsing a two-state solution. In addition, South Africa has issued warnings about the perils of acting with impunity and engaging in attacks within the international community. These warnings serve as a reminder that actions without accountability can have severe consequences. As for whether South Africa will take any further action, that remains to be seen. South Africa's decision to approach the International Court of Justice, ICJ, stems from a recognition that criticizing Israel's actions alone is not enough to address the deep-rooted issues in the Israel-Palestine conflict. The ICJ serves as a global judicial body that can provide an impartial and legal framework for resolving disputes between nations. By seeking intervention from the ICJ, South Africa is demonstrating its firm commitment to pursuing justice for those affected by the ongoing crisis. Criticism alone may not yield the desired outcomes or hold accountable those responsible for violations of international law. By taking the conflict to the ICJ, South Africa is taking a proactive step to ensure that legal mechanisms are employed to address the humanitarian concerns and seek a fair resolution. This move highlights South Africa's belief in the power of international law and its commitment to upholding justice on the global stage. South Africa's decision to involve the ICJ is not an isolated action, but part of a broader strategy to secure just and lasting resolution. It complements its diplomatic efforts and reinforces the need for legal recourse in addressing the conflict. By utilizing the ICJ, South Africa is leveraging international institutions to provide an impartial and binding judgment that can contribute to the path towards a peaceful resolution. In summary, South Africa's recourse to the ICJ is a reflection of its unwavering commitment to pursuing justice and finding a comprehensive solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict. It signifies the nation's belief in the power of international law to address humanitarian concerns and hold accountable those responsible for violations. The ICJ serves as a platform to bring order and legality to the chaos unfolding in global affairs, and South Africa's actions emphasize the necessity of collective commitment to respecting and upholding international law. The nation's decision to involve the International Court of Justice, ICJ, is a clear demonstration of its unwavering dedication to finding a resolution that goes beyond the immediate turmoil in the Israel-Palestine conflict. It recognizes the importance of justice prevailing not just for the current situation, but but as a means to address the enduring oppression faced by the Palestinian people. By involving the ICJ, South Africa strategically aligns itself with the principles of international law, seeking a fair and impartial examination of the conflict. South Africa's approach emphasizes the need for comprehensive resolution that addresses the root causes of the broader oppression faced by the Palestinians, rather than merely treating the symptoms of the crisis. The nation understands that justice must extend beyond the immediate situation to rectify historical injustices and systemic challenges. Now, why are African nations particularly interested in addressing the Palestine issue? This focus sparks curiosity. Is it a regional inclination, or does it reflect a broader global trend of prioritizing certain matters over others? For South Africa, the resonance goes beyond geopolitics and intertwines with historical struggles against apartheid. Drawing parallels with the Palestinian resistance, South Africa's deep historical and emotional connection serves as a foundation for their solidarity. The historical wounds inflicted upon African nations by Western powers during the era of colonialism have fostered a unique sense of empathy and solidarity with the struggles faced by the Palestinian people. The shared experience of colonialism and oppression has created profound connection, amplifying Africa's understanding of the plight of Palestine. African nations, having endured the brunt of imperialistic ambitions, colonial rule, and systemic injustices, recognize the echoes of their own past and the challenges faced by Palestine. This shared narrative of resilience in the face of external pressures has become a unifying factor, knitting together the stories of Africa and Palestine. The scars of brutality left on African nations by Western powers serve as a backdrop to the solidarity expressed toward Palestine. The resonance of historical struggles against exploitation, subjugation, and external interference forms the foundation of this alliance. It is more than a political alignment. It is a recognition of a shared journey of overcoming oppression in solidarity with Palestine. The resonance between these seemingly disparate yet interconnected narratives lies in the shared pursuit of justice and sovereignty. Drawing on a legacy of resisting colonialism and oppression, African nations empathize with Palestine's quest for self-determination. This alliance transcends geographical boundaries and emphasizes a common thread of resilience against external interference. The historical context of Africa's anti-colonial struggles becomes a source of inspiration for those championing the Palestinian cause. The empathy cultivated through their histories of resistance creates a bond that transcends geographical distances,